Hi, in this series on basic piano, we're going to do a couple of things. For non-piano players, I'm going to show you how you can begin to include the piano in your daily music practice. So everything you're learning in Improvise for Real about chords and harmony and improvisation, I'm going to show you how you can bring all of that to the piano. We'll start by demystifying the piano keyboard. I'll teach you how to visualize tonality directly on the keyboard of your piano. From there, you'll learn how to create chords, you'll be creating left-hand accompaniments, you'll be improvising solos with your right hand. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And I also think the piano is an amazing learning tool because it's such a visual instrument. It just makes it really easy to see harmonic relationships and understand how everything fits together. And of course, you'll bring that clarity with you when you go back to playing your main instrument. So I think it's going to really accelerate your learning and your understanding of harmony. It's going to make you a better player on your main instrument. But I also think you're just going to get a lot of pleasure out of playing the piano for its own sake. It's a wonderful instrument, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Now for piano players, our focus will be a little different, obviously, because you already have a strong base of knowledge and technique, and you already learned your way around the scales and arpeggios and so forth. So what I'm going to try to do for you is to just help you adapt those exercises to more of a tonal context, so you can get double value for your practicing. You're not just doing a physical exercise like a 5-finger drill, but we're going to imagine that we're in a particular harmonic environment. So you can be learning about, for example, what scale degrees make up what chords. You'll be learning to connect all of this with your ear, and I think it'll give you a more seamless transition to improvising your own music over chord progressions and songs. Now the first step to learning to create your own music on any instrument is just to understand how the notes are laid out on that instrument. In Improvise for Real, this is what we study in exercise 1, landscape, and so we're going to do a little bit of that today with the piano. We need to learn to visualize what I call the unbroken chain of half steps across the piano keyboard. You could also think of this as just a chromatic scale. It's the lowest layer of our musical system. It's like the underlying matrix on which everything else is built, tonality and harmony and chords and melodies. So we need to learn to see that clearly. The piano makes that very easy, and I'm going to walk you through it right now. So let's just start on the note C. And what I want you to understand about the piano keyboard is that moving to the key immediately to the right or immediately to the left, regardless of whether it's a black key or a white key, is going to move you up or down a half step. And so one of the mindset shifts we need to make with the piano is to learn to look past this difference between the black keys and the white keys and really learn to see all the notes as equals. Music is relative, meaning any song or melody can be played in any key. So we have to learn to see tonal shapes across different regions of the keyboard, regardless of whether they're involving black keys or white keys or what combination you may have. And so let's just walk through this a little bit and make sure that logic is clear. If I start on the note C, and if I want to go up a half step, I'll move to the key that I have immediately to the right, which in this case is a black key. And if I want to move up more successive half steps, the next key I encounter will be a white key. That's D. The next key is a black key, E flat. The next key immediately to the right is a white key, this E, natural. And now look that the very next key I have immediately to my right is another white key, F. I'm moving up by half steps. Next key is a black key. I'm still moving up by half steps. And so as I move up through that region, regardless of whether it's a black key or a white key, it's just whatever key is physically the one that's touching you just to your right, that moves you up a half step. And of course in reverse, whatever key you have immediately to your left, regardless of whether it's black or white, that moves you down a half step. So now let me show you a really simple exercise that'll allow you to practice this and experience it a little bit. I'm going to show you a very basic fingering for the chromatic scale. Some people teach a more sophisticated fingering that can allow you to do certain passages faster, but we don't care about that. I just want you to have a really simple basic fingering that's easy to learn and that'll allow you to move through these peaks and valleys and experience the kind of topography of the piano keyboard. And the way the fingering works is that it primarily alternates between the middle finger and the thumb. And so we're going to start by placing our middle finger on any black key. The middle finger is going to play all the black keys. That's an absolute rule. Okay? We'll do it with the right hand. I'll start here on D flat. And now most of the white keys you're going to play with your thumb. Except when we have those little valleys we have to get through that have 2 consecutive white keys. Then we're going to involve another finger as well. But the basic dynamic is middle, thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb. And now let's keep going up. Middle, thumb, middle, thumb, and notice now I have two successive white keys, two consecutive white keys. And so this is where I'm going to get my index finger involved. I'm going to roll through that by using my index, and now I play the next black key with my middle. And now I'm back on my path, middle, thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb. Again, to roll through this valley of two consecutive white keys, that's where my index finger comes into play, putting me back on my middle finger on the next black key. And you can just go up the entire piano keyboard in that way. Now, in your left hand, it's the exact same logic. It's just that because our hands are mirror images of one another, the order of the index and the thumb works out to be different, but it's the same idea. We want to mainly alternate between the middle finger on the black keys and the thumb on most of the white keys, except when we have to go through that little valley where you have two consecutive white keys, and that's where you're going to use your index finger. And to avoid getting confused about which is the index and which is the thumb as you're going through that valley, really, I want you to understand that why we use this fingering. In fact, most piano fingering, one of the most important issues is simply just not getting your fingers tied in knots and not doing unnecessary crossovers. So if you can avoid crossing your fingers, that's always better. I'll show you what I mean. Let's start here on G flat with my middle finger, of course. This is my left hand now. And as I'm ascending, I'll start my dynamic alternating between middle and thumb. So I've got my middle on G flat, my thumb on G, middle, thumb, middle. Now I could play that next note B natural with my thumb, but what happens then if I play it with my thumb, now in order to roll through this valley and get back up to my middle finger on the next black key, I have to use my index finger crossing over my thumb, which is a little less comfortable. And so what we're going to do is we're going to anticipate that. As we move up, middle, thumb, middle, as I see these two white keys coming, I go to my index finger first. I play my index, then my thumb, and that's much more comfortable, and that'll be much smoother and much faster for you. So when you're ascending in the left hand, you always have to anticipate it, see that pair of white keys coming, and play with your index first and then your thumb. Now, similarly, this is what happens in the right hand when we're descending. The right hand ascending, I can just innocently play middle, thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb, and it's when I have the two white keys together that I've already played with my thumb. So my index, then I can play this. So there's nothing really to think about or anticipate. I can just go ahead and play with that thumb, and then my index finger falls into place to get me through that valley. But it's when I'm descending that I have to anticipate it. If you imagine going down, middle, thumb, middle, now I've got the two white keys back to back, and this is where I have to anticipate, and I have to play with my index finger first so that then my thumb can fall and I can get back up to that middle finger on the next black key. So middle, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb. An easy way to kind of check and make sure you're not doing it backwards or getting confused is that whatever fingering you use for ascending, it's going to be the exact same fingering for descending. And so whatever key on the keyboard gets a thumb when you're ascending, it's also going to get a thumb when you're descending, because there's really only one way to place your hand in that region that is optimal, right? In your right hand, it would always be thumb, index, middle. In your left hand, it would be middle, index, thumb, right? This is the way our hands are shaped, and so that's the way we're going to play. And so what I would recommend that you do is just explore this a little bit with the two hands separately. Just wander up and down the piano keyboard with your right hand, wander up and down the piano keyboard with your left hand. If you're feeling ambitious, you can try integrating them together. You can do the same note. You could just separate the hands by octaves. So we'll play C with both hands. I'll go up to D flat with the middle, thumb, middle. And this is interesting because now my hands have to do kind of opposite things. On my left hand, I'm going to play middle, index, thumb. But with my right hand, I'm going to play middle, thumb, index, right? Because, like I say, our hands are mirror images of one another. And so the fingering is it's something to experience, right? You're going to have to get used to using one finger on one hand while you're simultaneously using a different finger on the other hand. But it's quite easy. I mean, it won't take you long before this is very automated and the hands just learn the most comfortable and ergonomic way to roll through those valleys, and you'll have no problem combining both hands together. And regardless of how far you take the exercise, you don't have to use a metronome, you don't have to get fast with it. No matter how far you take the exercise, you're guaranteed to get the really important benefit that we need you to get from this stage of the method, which is simply understanding how the notes are laid out on the piano keyboard and getting used to this idea that there's no difference between the black keys and the white keys, and as you move from one key to the next, that's what the unbroken chain of half steps looks like. That's really preparing your mind for the next step, where we're going to visualize whole steps across the musical terrain, and then we're going to be able to build the IFR tonal map, and we're going to be able to start really making music.